Hey, I'm Rachel Leinweber. I'm the general manager of Anglers Covey and also one of our fishing guides and instructors. Today we're doing our bug of the month on the yellow Sally stonefly. We're out here on the South Platte and we're gonna see what we can find. So a little bit about the yellow Sally stonefly itself. It's going to be a little bit smaller than what we're used to. In the South Platte, a lot of times we'll use pretty large stoneflies, black, brown, big pats, rubber legs just to get stuff down. Yellow Sally is not quite like that, so they're going to be much smaller, usually size, I would say 14-ish, 14 to 18, so much smaller bug we're talking about here. And how to identify them: when they're in their nymph stage, they look similar to any other stonefly that we fish here, but they're going to be pretty bright yellow, especially underneath, and then the top of them is very mottled, so it almost looks like gravel on the top, and that helps them be a little more camouflaged when they're underneath, so less likely to be a meal during that stage of their life. And then when they're adults, it'll be just this tiny little fly that'll land on you. Similar to other stoneflies, those wings are going to go horizontally and just tint their bodies, but what will stick out to you is it's going to be pretty bright yellow. And we're not talking like PMD, pale, butter colored, it's bright yellow. And then usually right on the back, right in front of their two tails, is going to be a spot of red that kind of graduates to that yellow color. So if you have these tiny little stick-like looking stoneflies on you, if they're yellow and they have a little red butt, then that is a yellow Sally. And now how you know when they're adults that they're around you or that they're present in the water is you can shake bushes, look on top of rocks, on top of anything that is outside of the water, and you'll see them crawling. And that is because the yellow Sally, unlike our mayflies and our midges where they emerge, float to the top of the water, crack open their wing cases, stoneflies, and the yellow stonefly in particular, will just use rocks and land, grasses, riverbanks, and they'll crawl out instead of emerging through the water column. And that is where they will shimmy out of their exoskeleton, and that's their full emergence into an adult pattern. Their flight pattern is a little bit erratic, but it's fairly up and down as well. And if you're not seeing any fly around, that's okay. They're not like a caddis where you're going to see them just chaotically skittering on the water. Usually they'll be on that land, so if you shake a bush or if you have something just hit you when you're sitting on the bank, that's where you're going to find them in that adult stage. Now, where you're going to find them when they're in their nymph stage is cold, fast-flowing, well-oxygenated water. Like other stoneflies, the yellow Sally really needs a well-oxygenated environment, which is part of why biologists look to see them, just to know that it's a really healthy ecosystem. So if you find a yellow Sally, first of all, in general, you know you're in a healthy place and a water source that has lots of oxygen, and it's just really a rich ecosystem. But what that means for us as anglers is that we want to look in some riffles, some fast-moving water. I like to call it the cheese grater effect. So some rocks where the water going over it looks like if you put a cheese grater under your faucet. That's the kind of water we want to look for stoneflies. You could also go towards the river banks and river edges, more towards right now, so afternoon time. We're not looking first thing in the morning. We're not a morning hatch for yellow Sally. So look towards the edges of the riverbanks, turn over some rocks. That's where they're going to be. Towards this time, what time is it right now? It is 1:30 right now. We're probably going to start seeing them flying around in some bushes. They're just more of a heat-centered insect. So hopefully that helps you know where to find them, and then when you do find them, how to identify them. Okay, so speaking of yellow Sallies, as we're sitting here filming, I just felt something crawl up into my hairline, and what do you know? It's a yellow Sally. So this is an olivey one. You see he's got that red butt on him though, and that we've got two tails there. That red butt is what clues us in right away to that being a yellow Sally. And he's on the olive range of that yellow to olive. And I'm surprised he's not flying away yet. But that's him. You can cut all of that. Okay, so we're gonna stay in the river first just to see if we can find any yellow Sally nymphs that are already in the water. We're gonna use this landing net seine, and Tippet is gonna help us. So we have a little yellow Sally here. We just seined, and you can see we have some other little Baetis in here, but how we know that this is a yellow Sally, other than it's pretty light yellow, light olive color, is that he's only got 2 tails compared to a mayfly that has 3 tails. So we can see he's pretty big, pretty yellow. Oh, that's perfect. See his belly, pretty olive. And yep, only 2 tails. Get out of my seat. I'm done with that. Today we're going to be fishing both different life stages. We have an adult and a nymph. So similar to a dry dropper, hopper dropper, we're going to have a tandem rig. My first fly here has a little foam on it. This is called a never sink Sally. I love this, especially when I'm fishing with a dropper because of all that foam on there. It's going to keep it nice and high, and it's going to be hard for that dropper to really drown it. And then next we've got an iron Sally, and this is a beadhead pattern. It's got some awesome, really flexible legs that those give it a lot of lifelike wiggle, but we've still got that pretty yellow and gold underbody. It's a little bit flashy to get some attention, and of course it's got those 2 really strong forked tails. So this is a pretty natural imitation, but with quite a bit of weight to help it get down as a dropper. And now my rig here, you can see I've got quite a bit of space between my dry fly and my dropper. And that's because for yellow Sallies, their nymphs are typically towards the bottom of the water column, right in that substrate in the rocks. So I don't want my dropper to be just 12 inches below my dry. Where we're going to be fishing, which is in some riffly water, I want to make sure that my nymph can drop down, has plenty of room just to move and really get to that bottom. Otherwise, I'm going to be floating that nymph right above the fish's heads where they're not looking for it, and there's really not going to be a point to even have to drop her on. Thanks for watching. I hope you learned something about yellow Sallies today. If any of these patterns looked interesting and you look in your box and you don't have them, come by the shop and we can load you up. We also have all the materials to tie all of these. And yellow Sallies are a very fun bug to tie because you have very different looking life stages and we've got everything you need. Thanks.